I was chopping vegetables, the smell of garlic still on my hands, when I heard the knock that changed everything. A police officer stood at my door, his eyes heavy, his voice trembling. "Sir, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your wife was killed in a car accident an hour ago." I froze. My wife, she was upstairs, sleeping. I told him so. I even led him to the bedroom. But when he saw her, he pulled his gun. His words cut through the air like a blade. "Sir, step away from her. That woman is not your wife. If you have ever had your reality shattered by betrayal or dreamed of watching karma deliver justice, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay with me, because this story, this revenge, is going to leave you speechless." I still remember the smell of garlic clinging to my fingertips that morning. It was faint, almost sweet, the kind of smell that usually reminded me of comfort of home. I was standing in the kitchen, humming some half-forgotten tune under my breath, chopping vegetables for lunch. It was an ordinary day, nothing special. Or at least, it should have been. The world has this cruel way of disguising disasters as ordinary moments. You don't see them coming. You don't get a warning. One second, you're slicing onions, thinking about what sauce to use. The next second, your entire life collapses. It started with a knock at the door. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was firm, heavy, the kind of knock that doesn't belong to a neighbor stopping by to borrow sugar or to a delivery guy with a package. No, this was a knock that carried weight and authority. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they had the wrong house. I wiped my hands on a towel, heart thumping a little faster than usual. When I opened the door, I was met with the uniform of a police officer. His face was pale, stiff, the kind of expression that made my stomach twist, before he even said a word. "Sir," he began, his voice low, careful, as if he was carrying something fragile in his mouth. I am sorry to inform you that your wife was killed in a car accident about an hour ago." The words didn't make sense. They floated in the air, disconnected, like puzzle pieces from the wrong box. For a moment, I just stared at him. My mind refused to process it. My wife, dead. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it slammed into me all at once. A sharp, nervous laugh escaped my throat before I could stop it. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, that's impossible. My wife is upstairs. She's sleeping. Do you want me to show you?" The officer's brow furrowed. A crease cut deep into his forehead, and I could see the hesitation in his eyes. "Sir, maybe you should sit down." "No," I snapped, louder than I meant to. My pulse hammered in my ears, a hot rush of blood making me dizzy. "Come in, I'll show you. You've made a mistake." I stepped aside, gesturing for him to follow. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before stepping in, his boots heavy against the hardwood floor. The house suddenly felt colder, quieter. Every creak in the floor, every hum of the refrigerator, seemed louder, sharper, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I led him upstairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. My stomach churned. It was absurd. Of course she was there. Of course she was fine. The officer would see her, apologize for the mix-up, and everything would go back to normal. We reached the bedroom. I pushed the door open with a shaky hand. There she was. My wife. The sunlight spilled across the bed, brushing against her hair like a halo. She was lying on her side, breathing evenly, her chest rising and falling in a rhythm I knew better than my own. For a moment, I felt vindicated, relieved. "See," I whispered, almost smiling. "She's right there. She's fine." But the officer didn't smile. He froze in the doorway, his entire body stiffening like a statue. His hand moved instinctively to his belt, his voice sharp, urgent. "Sir," he said, his tone completely different now, firm, commanding. "Step away from her." I blinked, confused. What are you?" His hand gripped his holster. In a flash, the metallic gleam of a pistol caught the sunlight. He raised it, pointing it directly at the bed. "Step away from her." My mouth went dry. My heart stumbled in my chest, thudding painfully against my ribs. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of panic. "That's my wife. Put the gun down. She's sleeping." His eyes never left her. His jaw clenched tight, sweat shining faintly at his temples. "That woman," he said, each word dropping heavy and deliberate, "is not your wife." The room tilted. For a moment, I thought I might faint. My knees went weak, the ground beneath me threatening to give way. Not my wife. The woman lying in my bed, the woman I had kissed goodnight, the woman I had lived beside for years. I staggered back a step, my breath catching in my throat. My eyes darted to her face, searching desperately for some sign of what? I didn't know. She looked the same. She was the same. Her hair, her skin, her lips, even the tiny mole just under her jawline. It was her. It had to be. But the officer's words cut through me, slicing reality into jagged pieces. "Sir," he warned again, his gun steady. "For your own safety, move away." And in that instant, standing in the doorway with the barrel of a pistol gleaming inches from the woman I loved, I realized something horrifying. My life was no longer my own. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. The silence in that room was unbearable. It was heavy, almost suffocating, the kind of silence that makes you hear things that aren't there, the faint buzz in your ears, the pounding of your heart, the trembling in your breath. I couldn't stop staring at her. My wife, my Emily. She was still lying there, completely unaware of the chaos unraveling inches away from her. The officer's gun was trained on her chest, his knuckles pale from gripping the handle so tight. "Listen," I said, raising my hands, my voice cracking with desperation. "This is insane. You're pointing a gun at my wife while she's sleeping. Just look at her. She's alive. She's right there." The officer didn't lower his weapon. His gaze was locked on her, like a predator waiting for movement. "Sir," he said through gritted teeth, "I don't know what you think you see, but that is not your wife. I just came from the crash site. Your wife is dead. I saw her body myself." My stomach lurched, twisting into knots so tight I thought I'd throw up. His words were impossible. They clashed violently with the image in front of me. "You're wrong," I whispered. "You have to be wrong." But a sliver of something dark and sharp wormed its way into my chest fear. What if he wasn't wrong? The woman on the bed shifted slightly, a soft sigh escaping her lips as she rolled to her back. The sunlight revealed more of her face. My breath hitched. Yes, it was her. The curve of her jaw, the lashes that always brushed against her cheek when she slept, the faint scar on her forehead from when she fell off her bike as a kid. But then, something was off. Her lips were parted, just slightly, but there was no sound of steady breathing, no rise and fall of her chest. She looked like she was sleeping, but the longer I stared, the more unnatural it seemed. The officer must have seen it too. He inched closer, gun still raised. "Step back," he barked. I obeyed this time, stumbling until my back hit the dresser. My hands shook uncontrollably. "Emily," I whispered, my voice thin. Her eyes opened, not slowly, not groggily, but suddenly, snapping open like shutters in a storm. They were wrong. Completely, terrifyingly wrong. Her eyes were the same shade of green as my wife's. But there was something hollow in them, empty, like a mask that had been painted on but didn't belong to a real person. A cold shiver slid down my spine. "Emily," I tried again, my voice trembling. She smiled. It wasn't the warm, gentle smile I knew. It was stiff, calculated, almost mechanical, a perfect imitation, but lacking the soul behind it. The officer's voice cut through the thick air. "Sir, I need you to leave the room." Now I couldn't move. My legs felt glued to the floor. My eyes refused to look away from her thing lying in my bed. She sat up slowly, her movements unnervingly smooth, almost puppet-like. Her head tilted slightly to one side, as if studying me. That smile never faltered. "Good morning," she said softly. The voice, it was hers, identical. Every tone, every cadence, the same voice that had whispered "I love you" in the dark. But there was something underneath it, a distortion, faint but unmistakable, like a recording played back just a half step off. My knees buckled. I pressed myself harder against the dresser, panic clawing at my throat. The officer stepped forward, his gun shaking slightly now. "Don't move," he warned. Her eyes flicked to him. The smile widened, stretching just a little too far. "Is there a problem, officer?" The way she said it, calm, casual, almost mocking. The officer swallowed hard. His finger hovered dangerously near the trigger. "Stay where you are," he repeated. She didn't listen. She stood up from the bed in one fluid motion, her bare feet soundless on the hardwood. She turned toward me, and my entire body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. That wasn't my wife. I didn't know what she was, but it wasn't Emily. The officer barked again, louder this time. "Sir, get out of the room." His words finally broke through my paralysis. I scrambled toward the doorway, nearly tripping over my own feet. Behind me, I heard movement. The creak of the mattress, the shuffle of footsteps, and then, bang! The gunshot ripped through the air, so loud it shook the walls. I stumbled into the hallway, hands over my ears, heart slamming against my ribs. Silence. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The smell of gunpowder stung my nose, sharp and acrid. Then I heard a laugh. Low at first, almost like a chuckle. But it grew louder, sharper, echoing through the hallway until it didn't sound human anymore. My blood turned to ice. The officer's voice came next, panicked and strained. "Stay back, stay back." Another gunshot, then another, and still, the laughter didn't stop. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I tore down the stairs, every step shaking beneath my weight, my breath ragged, my chest burning. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real, but deep down, I knew it was. The woman upstairs wasn't my wife, and whatever she was, she wanted me to believe otherwise. I didn't stop running until my knees gave out. I collapsed against the wall near the front door, gasping for air, my chest heaving like I had sprinted for miles. My vision blurred with sweat and tears, the world spinning violently around me. But then, upstairs, the gunfire had stopped. No laughter, no footsteps, nothing. For a heartbeat, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe the officer had put her down, put it down. But that hope lasted only seconds. The silence wasn't relief, it was dread. Heavy, suffocating dread, pressing into my lungs until I could barely breathe. I scrambled for my phone on the counter, nearly dropping it twice with my shaking hands. My fingers danced over the screen, dialing 911. It rang once before the dispatcher picked up. 911, what's your emergency? My wife, I choked out, my voice raw. Something's wrong, there's an intruder, not an intruder. She's not my wife. She looks like her, but she's not, and the officer upstairs. He shot her, but she's still, the words tangled together, tripping over my panic. Sir, please slow down, the dispatcher said calmly. Are you saying there's someone impersonating your wife in your home? Yes, I nearly screamed. She looks like her, she is her, but she's not. Please, send backup, send everyone you can. I could hear the typing on the other end, the detached efficiency of someone trained to keep calm. Units are already en route. Stay on the line with me, sir. Before I could respond, a sound drifted down the staircase. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Every creak of the steps was like a hammer against my skull. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, my body shaking uncontrollably. Sir, the dispatcher asked, are you safe right now? I couldn't answer, because she was standing there. At the top of the stairs, her hair was slightly tousled now, as if she had just woken from a nap. There wasn't a single scratch on her, no blood, no bullet wounds, nothing but her smile. God, that smile. It stretched wider than before, impossibly wide, showing just a hint too many teeth. She tilted her head, her green eyes locking onto mine. Why are you scared? She asked, her voice soft, sweet, almost playful. It's me. My stomach dropped to the floor. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the ground. I heard the dispatcher calling my name, asking if I was still there, but I couldn't answer. All I could do was stare at her. The officer was nowhere in sight. She descended the stairs, each step slow, measured, like a predator savoring the chase. I backed away, my legs hitting the corner of the couch. My throat felt like it was closing, every breath shallow and painful. Emily, I whispered. What did you do? She paused mid-step, tilting her head the other way, as if the question genuinely confused her. Then she laughed, a soft, delicate sound that was almost normal, but behind it I could hear something else, a faint echo, a distortion. What do you mean, darling? She cooed. I was just sleeping. Why are you acting so strange? The words cut me like knives, because they weren't hers. They were too precise, too deliberate, as if she had studied my wife and was now performing her lines. The front door burst open. 2 more officers stormed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. The sudden chaos jolted me back into reality. Get on the ground. One officer barked at her. She turned to them, her smile fading, her expression shifting into something unreadable. Is this a joke? She asked, her voice perfectly calm. Why are you pointing guns at me in my own house? The officers exchanged glances, their hesitation palpable. She's not my wife, I screamed, my voice breaking. She's not, don't believe her. One officer gestured me aside, trying to shield me behind him. The other kept his aim steady. Ma'am, he said firmly, we received a report that you were involved in a fatal accident. We need you to come with us. Her face softened instantly, her lips trembling as if she were about to cry. What are you talking about? She said, her voice shaking with practiced fragility. That's insane. I was here the whole time. My husband can tell you that, can't you, sweetheart? She turned her head, eyes locking onto mine. Sweetheart, it was what Emily used to call me. In the morning when I brought her coffee, at night before we turned out the lights. But when this woman said it, it sounded like poison. My throat closed up. I wanted to scream the truth, to shout that she was a liar, a monster. But the words caught in my chest. The officers looked at me, waiting for confirmation. And in that hesitation, she smiled again. You see, she said gently, tears glistening in her eyes. He's confused. He's been under so much stress lately. Please, don't take him seriously. My heart stopped. She was turning it around, gaslighting me, making me look insane. The officer lowered his gun slightly, his eyes narrowing at me instead. Sir, are you sure you're okay? Do you need medical attention? No, I shouted. I'm not crazy. She's not my wife. She's something else. But the words sounded hollow, even to my own ears. The 2 officers exchanged another glance. One muttered something under his breath, something about psych evil, and that's when I realized the most terrifying part of all. Nobody was going to believe me. This thing had my wife's face, my wife's voice, my wife's memories. To the outside world, she was Emily, and I was just the hysterical husband screaming nonsense. As they escorted her gently toward the door, she looked over her shoulder at me one last time. Her lips curved into the faintest smirk, invisible to the others, but crystal clear to me. A message. She was winning. They took her away that night, but not in cuffs, not like the monster she was. No, they wrapped her in concern, guiding her gently down the steps, asking if she was all right, if she needed anything, like she was the victim. And me, I was left standing in my own living room, hands trembling, heart pounding, staring at the bloodstains seeping into the carpet where the first officer had fallen. Because that's what nobody wanted to acknowledge. He hadn't come back down. The officer who had drawn his weapon, the one who fired at her upstairs, he was gone, and nobody said a word. When I asked, their faces stiffened. "We'll handle it," one of them muttered, refusing to meet my eyes. Handle it? What the hell did that mean? By the time the flashing lights faded from my street and the last cruiser pulled away, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. But I wasn't alone. Her perfume lingered in the air. Lavender and vanilla, the same scent Emily wore. But now it made my stomach twist. It didn't comfort me anymore. It choked me. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made me flinch. Every shadow made me feel watched, and the worst part, her voice echoed in my head. "Why are you scared? It's me." Morning light didn't bring relief. It brought questions. I called the station as soon as I could, demanding answers. They told me no officer had been dispatched to my address the day before. No records, no report of my wife's death. Nothing. It was like it had never happened. Like I was the only one who had seen it. A chill settled in my bones. Either I was losing my mind, or something far darker was covering its tracks. The days that followed blurred together. She came back. Of course she did. Not with handcuffs, not with explanations. She just walked through the front door 2 nights later, as if nothing had happened. Keys jingling. Grocery bags in hand. "Honey, I grabbed your favorite coffee," she called out, her tone light, familiar. For a moment, my heart betrayed me. It leaped in my chest, desperate to believe it was real, that she was real. That none of it had happened. But when I looked into her eyes, that emptiness stared back at me. She kissed my cheek, and her lips were warm. Too warm, like flesh stretched over something that didn't belong. I froze under her touch. "What's wrong?" she asked sweetly, her head tilted in that too perfect mimicry of Emily's concern. "You've been so jumpy lately." Jumpy, that's what she called it. As if I were some skittish animal, not a man who'd watched bullets sink into her without leaving a mark. I wanted to scream, to shove her out, to demand the truth. But what could I say? Nobody believed me, so I smiled back, tight, forced, just tired. She accepted it, or pretended to. But that night, as I lay awake listening to her breathing beside me, I felt it again, the wrongness. The rhythm was off, too steady, too deliberate. Like she was practicing being human. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, a single thought burning through me. If nobody else was going to uncover the truth, then I would. That was the moment the fear began to harden into something sharper. Not survival, not escape, but resolve. Revenge. I started with the accident. If she was here, alive or something like alive, then what had happened to Emily? The real Emily. The news gave me nothing. No reports of a fatal crash matching her description. No obituaries. No wreckage. It was like Emily had been erased. I dug deeper. Police records, medical reports, traffic logs. Nothing. Until I remembered something. The officer, the first one, he had seen it too. He had fired at her. He knew she wasn't human, and now he was gone. So I searched for him. I didn't know his name, but I remembered his face, his badge number. I spent hours combing through department websites, social media pages, local news articles. Finally, I found a photo, a smiling headshot of Officer Daniel Hayes. Only, according to every source I checked, he'd been killed in the line of duty. 2 years ago, my blood turned to ice. If Hayes was dead, then who the hell had knocked on my door that day? By the end of that week, paranoia was gnawing at every corner of my mind. I couldn't trust what I saw, couldn't trust who I spoke to, but I could trust my instincts, and my instincts screamed one thing. If I wanted answers, I had to stop reacting and start hunting. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. One evening, when she said she was heading to the store, I waited 5 minutes before slipping out behind her. My heart hammered as I trailed her car at a distance, every turn ratcheting my nerves tighter, but she didn't go to the store. She drove out of town, past the highway exit, down a long stretch of road that led nowhere but the woods. My pulse thundered in my ears as I killed my headlights and followed at a crawl. Finally, she turned into a clearing. I parked far enough away to stay hidden. Through the trees I watched as she stepped out of the car, and she wasn't alone. 3 others were waiting. All of them looked normal, like people you'd pass on the street and never notice. But when they turned toward her, their smiles were identical. Wide, hollow, wrong. My stomach dropped. She wasn't an accident. She wasn't a one-off. She was part of something bigger, something organized, and whatever they weren't human. I stumbled back into my car, sweat soaking through my shirt. My mind raced with questions, with terror, but one thought cut through everything else. Emily was gone. These things had taken her place. And if I didn't stop them, they'd keep taking. Maybe they already had. That night, lying beside her imitation in bed, I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt rage, cold, focused, blinding rage, and I promised myself one thing. I would find out what they were. I would expose them, and when the time came, I would make them pay. The next morning, I looked at her differently. She sat at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone just like Emily used to. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her robe hanging loose around her shoulders. On the surface, she was the same woman I had loved for 10 years. But I knew better now. Every flick of her eyes, every sip of her cup, every small smile, it was all performance. A flawless act designed to keep me docile, and I played along. I buttered my toast. I asked about her plans for the day. I even kissed her forehead before I left for work. But I wasn't going to work. I was going hunting. I started with missing persons reports. For hours, I sat in the library, scrolling through online databases, local police archives, even old newspaper clippings. At first, it felt aimless. Too many faces, too many stories. People vanish every day. Car accidents, disappearances, fires, but then I noticed something strange. Patterns, clusters of accidents that left behind bodies to damage to confirm identity. A fiery crash here, a boating accident there. Families swearing their loved one had distinctive feature scars, tattoos that mysteriously weren't found on the bodies. And always, after the funerals, whispers. Neighbors swearing they'd seen the deceased walking around weeks later. Most chalked it up to grief, to stress, to denial. But I knew the truth. Those weren't ghosts. They were replacements. The deeper I dug, the darker it got. There were files buried in old archives, records that looked like they'd been deliberately scrubbed, but not completely erased. References to the Echo Project. My blood ran cold. Echo. It made too much sense. I printed everything I could find, my hands trembling as the machine spat out page after page. When I looked around, I half expected someone to be watching me, and maybe they were, because that night, when I got home, she was waiting for me, on the couch, lights dimmed, a glass of wine in her hand. "How was work?" she asked. Her voice was warm, like honey hiding the taste of poison. I forced a smile. Long, tiring. She studied me for a beat longer than necessary, her eyes glinting like she could see through me. But then she smiled again and leaned back, sipping her wine, and I knew I had to be careful. Over the next week, I pieced the fragments together. The Echo Project had started decades ago. A black-budget experiment. The goal: create perfect human doubles, not clones, not robots, something else. Something that could mimic not just appearance, but memory, behavior, even emotion. They called them echoes, and they weren't supposed to escape the program. But they had. And now, they were living among us. Replacing us. Replacing Emily. The question that haunted me wasn't how. I didn't care about the science, the labs, the government suits, who thought they could play God. The question was why. Why her? Why my wife? One night, while she was in the shower, I went through her purse. My hands shook as I rifled through receipts, lipsticks, keys, and then I found it. A phone, not hers, not Emily's. It was sleek, black, unmarked, no logos, no scratches. I powered it on. The screen flickered to life, revealing an encrypted interface. Rows of dates, coordinates, names, and one of those names was hers. Emily Hayes, my wife, the real one. Next to her name was a single word: replaced. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, my hands numb. Replaced. They had taken her, killed her, or worse. I didn't know which possibility was more unbearable. But I knew one thing for certain. The woman in my house was not my wife, and she never would be. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady, practiced breathing beside me. Images ran through my head. Emily laughing at the beach. Emily crying at our wedding because her dress zipper broke. Emily singing off-key in the car, and then her, the echo, wearing Emily's face like a mask, smiling at me, calling me sweetheart. My chest burned with rage, so sharp it made my vision blur. I turned my head and looked at her silhouette in the dark. She shifted slightly, as if sensing my eyes. For a split second, I thought she was awake, but then I realized the truth. She didn't need sleep. She was pretending. Pretending to be human. Pretending to be mine. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. No more pretending. No more fear. It was time to turn the tables. It was time to plan. Not just for answers. Not just for survival. But for revenge. Because whatever Echo Project had started, whatever they thought they could control, they had underestimated one thing. Me, and they were about to learn the cost of stealing the woman I loved. Revenge is not lightning. It's not loud, not sudden. It's a slow burn, a smoldering ember that grows hotter each day until it sets the whole world on fire. That's what I became, a patient flame. The next morning, I cooked her breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee. I smiled as I set the plate down in front of her, kissed her cheek, and said, "Big day today." She looked at me with that borrowed smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "What's the occasion?" she asked. I shrugged. Just felt like treating you. She bought it. Or pretended to. Either way, she ate every bite while I sipped my coffee, watching the way she moved, the way she breathed, the tiny hesitations she thought I didn't notice. She was studying me too. And that's when I realized something important. We weren't husband and wife anymore. We were predators, circling each other in the same cage. Step 1 of revenge was simple: information. I went back to the library, but I didn't use the computers this time. Too risky. Instead, I made calls from payphones, posed as a grad student doing research. And what I found made my blood boil. The Echo Project wasn't just local, it was national. A web stretching across cities, towns, even small rural communities. Every replacement covered by accidents, fires, disappearances. Always neat, always clean, and every Echo had handlers. That phone I'd found, it wasn't just a log, it was a leash. Someone was pulling her strings. Step 2 was preparation. I started buying supplies. Not all at once, never from the same place. A hammer from one hardware store. Duct tape from another, rope from a farm supply shop 2 towns over. To anyone else, it looked like nothing. To me it was the skeleton of a plan. At home, I hid everything carefully, under loose floorboards in the garage, inside hollowed-out paint cans, places she'd never think to look. And every time I tucked another tool away, I felt my confidence grow. I wasn't helpless anymore, I was arming myself for war. But revenge isn't just about weapons. It's about knowing your enemy. So I watched her. I memorized her patterns. When she showered, how long she spent in the bathroom, which nights she stayed up late pretending to read, and which nights she lay in bed, feigning sleep. And I started testing her. Small things. At first, I'd mention places Emily and I had been. Trips, restaurants, little moments. The Echo would nod, smile, even add details. But sometimes, she slipped. Like the night, I said. Remember, that little cabin in Vermont? The one with the creaky porch swing. She hesitated for half a second, too long before saying, of course. We'd never been to Vermont. That's when I knew. Her memories weren't perfect. She wasn't perfect, and mistakes meant weakness. Weakness I could exploit. One night, I followed her. She told me she was running to the store for groceries. But instead of heading toward town, she drove out past the city limits. I tailed her carefully, headlights off, heart hammering in my chest. Finally, she pulled into an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. She got out, phone in hand, and disappeared inside. I waited, 5 minutes, 10. When she came back out, she wasn't alone. 2 men walked her to the car. They looked like government spooks. Clean suits, hard faces. One of them handed her a small black case. She tucked it under her coat before driving away. I followed her home, careful not to be seen. That night, when she was in the shower again, I searched, and there it was. The case, hidden in the back of the closet. I opened it, my hands shaking. Inside was a syringe, clear liquid, no labels, and a note. One word: terminate. For the first time since this nightmare began, fear didn't consume me. Rage did. They wanted her to kill me. They thought I was weak, disposable, a footnote in their experiment. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I closed the case, put everything back exactly where I'd found it, and forced myself to smile through dinner that night. But inside, I made a vow. If she tried to end me, she'd be the one who didn't survive. And if her handlers thought they could cleanly erase me, I'd burn their whole operation to the ground. Step 3 was patience. I waited. Days bled into weeks. I kept my routine, never tipping my hand. But inside, I was sharpening myself. Every time she poured my coffee, every time she kissed me goodnight, every time she said I love you, with Emily's stolen voice, I grew stronger. I wasn't her husband. I wasn't her prey. I was the executioner, and her time was running out. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I came home to find her waiting in the dark, that same black case open on the table. The syringe gleamed in the dim light. She smiled softly, like this was all routine. Dinner's ready, she said. I looked at her, looked at the syringe, looked back at her smile, and I knew. Tonight was the night. The night the hunter finally strikes. The syringe glinted under the kitchen light, her fingers curled around it, delicately, like a surgeon holding an instrument. Dinner's ready, she repeated, her voice soft, inviting. But behind it, I could hear the steel, the order, the mission. I forced a smile, sliding into the chair across from her. My heart pounded in my chest, but my face stayed calm. I'd practiced for this moment in the mirror, night after night. What's on the menu? I asked. She tilted her head, studying me like a specimen. Just something special. The syringe sat on the table between us, as casual as a salt shaker. She didn't bother to hide it anymore. That told me everything. She wasn't here to pretend. She was here to finish me. But what she didn't know was that I'd been preparing to. Weeks ago, I'd rigged the garage with a set of ropes hidden in the rafters. Duct tape, even a chain lock on the inside of the door. The garage was my battleground. All I had to do was get her there. So I leaned back, feigning ease. You know, I said, I've been thinking, why don't we have dinner out in the garage? Just for old time's sake. She frowned. The garage, I shrugged. Yeah, you remember how Emily and I used to sit out there during storms, listening to the rain on the roof? A pause, the faintest flicker of confusion. She didn't know if that was true or not. Perfect. Finally, she smiled again. Sure, the garage. We carried the plates out together, the night air cool and damp. I let her walk in first, holding the door like a gentleman. The moment she stepped inside, I slammed it shut and threw the chain lock. Her head snapped toward me. Dennis, she said, voice calm, steady. Steady, what are you doing? I held her gaze, then pointed to the syringe still in her hand. You were going to kill me. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it. Instead, she set the syringe down on the workbench and clasped her hands in front of her like we were having a polite conversation. It's for your own good, she said softly. You weren't supposed to notice. You weren't supposed to resist. That broke something in me. My own good, I snarled. You murdered my wife. You crawled into her skin and pretended to love me. And now you want me gone because I won't play along. Her eyes flickered. For the first time, her mask cracked, and what I saw behind it wasn't Emily. It was nothing, cold, empty, a shadow, wearing flesh. You loved her, she whispered. That's why this works. That's why we chose you. You needed comfort. We gave it to you. My stomach turned. You're not her. You'll never be her. She tilted her head, smile returning, but it was sharp now. Predatory. Then why do you still look at me like she's standing here? That cut deep, because it was true. Even in my rage, even in my hatred, part of me still saw Emily's face. But rage is stronger than memory, and I'd waited too long for this. I lunged. Before she could react, I slammed her against the workbench, the syringe skittering across the floor. She hissed, thrashing with inhuman strength, but I was ready. I grabbed the rope from the rafters, looped it around her wrists, and pulled tight. She screamed on in pain, but in furious I tied her down. It wasn't easy. She kicked, clawed, bit, her teeth snapping inches from my throat, but rage gave me strength I didn't know I had. When it was over, she was bound to the chair, chest heaving, eyes blazing with something that was not human. You think this stops me? She spat. They'll come for me. They'll come for you. I wiped sweat from my forehead, breathing hard. Good. Let them. I want them to see what I do to their monster. She laughed then, a sound that didn't belong in Emily's throat. You think I'm the monster. You're the one who tied up your wife. You're the one who is about to torture the only person who has been by your side since she died. What does that make you? Dennis. Her words, cut, sharp, precise, like scalpels meant to wound the mind, not the body. But I shook my head. It makes me a man who finally stopped being a victim. Her smile faded. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes, and that's when headlights swept across the window. A car pulling into the driveway. My blood went cold. Her handlers, the garage filled with silence, broken only by her labored breathing. They're here, she whispered, and when they walk through that door, you'll wish you'd let me kill you quick. But she underestimated me again, because while she'd been pretending to be my wife, I'd been laying my own traps. I'd spread nails across the driveway earlier that week, hidden under a thin dusting of dirt. I heard it now, the hiss of punctured tires. The car screeched to a halt. Doors slammed. Angry voices shouted outside. She thrashed against the ropes. You don't know what you're doing, Dennis. You can't fight them. They'll erase you. I picked up the syringe from the floor, held it up, so the light caught the liquid inside. No, I said. They were about to find out what happens when they try to erase the wrong man. The garage door rattled. A voice shouted, "Open up, Mr. Walker." Now, she looked at me, panic etched across her stolen face. Dennis, please, she said, softer now, almost human. Don't do this. You'll never make it out alive. I leaned close, my lips brushing her ear. Neither will you. And as the door began to creak open, I pressed the syringe to her neck. The garage door groaned as it lifted inch by inch, flooding the room with cold night air. The handlers stepped in like shadows, wearing flesh, two men in dark coats, earpieces gleaming under the fluorescent light. Their eyes swept the room, landing first on me, then on the woman bound to the chair. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw her mask completely fall away. No Emily, no wife, just the echo eyes black, mouth twisted in fury. About time, she hissed. Get me out of this. But the handlers didn't move toward her. Instead, one of them smirked. Walker did the hard part for us. Contained. Like she wasn't human at all. I tightened my grip on the syringe, pressing it harder against her neck. What the hell are you? I demanded. And what did you do to my wife? The taller handler ignored me. He pulled a black case from his coat, snapped it open, revealing a row of gleaming instruments, needles, clamps, a bone saw. She was never your wife, he said calmly. She was a vessel, a construct. The real Emily died years ago. My stomach twisted. You're lying. The echo laughed, a horrible, broken sound. No, Dennis, they're telling the truth. You've been kissing a corpse. Something inside me shattered. Grief, rage, nausea all collided at once. And in that storm, clarity struck. These men didn't care about me. They didn't care about her. They only cared about control. And I still had the syringe. The shorter handler stepped forward, raising his gun. "Give her to us, Waka. Step aside and we'll let you live." But I'd heard enough promises to know better. I shoved the syringe into her neck and drove the plunger home. She screamed, thrashing against the ropes, her body convulsing violently. Black veins spidered across her skin, her eyes rolling white. The handlers cursed, lunging forward. Too late, the echo snapped the ropes like twine, rising from the chair with inhuman strength. Her mouth opened in a howl that rattled the tools on the workbench. The men fired their weapons. Bullets tore through her flesh, but she didn't fall. She moved too fast, too wild, tearing into them with a strength no human body should have. The garage became chaos, gunfire screams, the stench of blood. I ducked behind the workbench as one handler's body slammed against the wall, limbs broken at impossible angles. The other tried to run, but she caught him, snapping his neck with a single twist. Then it was just her and me. Her skin split with black veins, glowing like fire under the surface. She turned slowly, fixing those inhuman eyes on me. "You did this," she rasped. "You freed me." I stumbled back, heart racing. "I killed you." She smiled, blood dripping from her teeth. "No, Dennis, you set me free. And now," she stepped forward, "we finish what we started." Panic clawed at me, but so did something else. Resolve. This was it. The end. If I ran, she'd hunt me. If I begged, she'd laugh. There was only one way out. I grabbed the chain from the garage door, wrapped it around my fists, and faced her head on. "You're not my wife," I said through clenched teeth. "You're not Emily. You're nothing." Her smile faltered, just for a moment, and I lunged. The fight was brutal, animalistic. She slashed with claws that had been fingernails once, tearing at my arms, my chest. I swung the chain, metal cracking against bone, drawing screams from her stolen throat. We crashed into the workbench, sending tools flying. I grabbed a hammer, slammed it into her temple. She shrieked, grabbing my throat, squeezing until my vision blurred. Spots danced before my eyes, my chest burned. I was seconds from blacking out. But then my hand found the propane torch on the bench. With the last of my strength, I flicked the igniter. Flame roared to life. Her eyes widened. For the first time, she looked afraid. "No," she hissed, but I drove the torch into her chest, fire blooming across her skin. She screamed, a sound that wasn't human, thrashing wildly as the flames consumed her. The stench of burning flesh filled the garage, thick and choking. She staggered, clawing at me, at herself, at the air. And then finally she fell, a heap of ash and smoke on the concrete floor. I collapsed beside her, coughing, shaking, every muscle screaming in pain. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of dying flames. She was gone. Really gone. I thought I'd feel relief. But all I felt was emptiness. Because even though she was a monster, even though she had worn my wife's skin like a mask, part of me had wanted to believe. Part of me still loved the lie. Dawn crept in through the garage windows, pale and cold. The handlers' bodies lay twisted in the shadows. The echo was nothing but ash. And I was still alive, but not the same. Never the same. I staggered to my feet, bloodied and broken, and stepped into the morning air. The world looked the same, but it wasn't. Not anymore. Because now I knew the truth. There were more of them, more echoes, more handlers, and they wouldn't stop. Not unless someone stopped them first. I clenched my fists, the smell of smoke still clinging to me. "They took Emily from me," I whispered, "but I'll make sure they never take anyone else." And as the sun rose, I walked down the street barefoot, battered, ready for whatever came next. Because I wasn't a victim anymore, I was the hunter. If Dennis's fight left you on edge, don't leave him standing alone. Hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this story with someone who loves a chilling twist of revenge. And if you want more tales where betrayal meets justice, make sure to subscribe because the next nightmare might be even closer than you think.